On the,
Yes, I do. I haven't been doing much of it lately, but I'll be starting a picture in about a month, and I'll begin to work out every day. I still work with my old partner, Nick Cravat, who was in many pictures with me, like The Crimson Pirate, The Flame and the Arrow. And we'll get together and begin to work out every day. I'll start to ride because it's a Western.
Burt Lancaster wasn't just another Hollywood star. He was seen as the moral compass of the entire industry. His unforgettable performances in Atlantic City and Elmer Gantry made people believe he stood for integrity and truth. That's why the discovery of his secret notebook sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Inside, Burt had written names, the stars he believed were the darkest souls of the Golden Age. According to him, these weren't just talented actors. They were people who clawed their way to fame through manipulation so cruel it haunted him for years. But here's the question. Were these shocking confessions the truth behind their success? Or were they the grudges of a man who'd seen too much? The first name on that explosive list? None other than Kirk Douglas, the one Burt feared most. Douglas was worshipped by Hollywood for his powerful charisma and commanding presence. But Burt saw another side, a side that terrified him. He claimed Kirk used that same fire to dominate, humiliate, and control anyone who stood in his way.
He could have been free, but he was a man of a unique and independent spirit. He didn't want to be under any sort of probationary rule. He felt that he wanted to go out, that he had, as it were, paid his society for what he had done.
And it all came from something dark inside him, something that made even a man like Lancaster step back. Their feud started brewing in the late 1950s when Burt noticed Douglas bending studio executives to his will and destroying careers of those who wouldn't play along. One moment in particular stayed burned into Lancaster's memory. A 1959 film where a rising actress named Lisa Avery suddenly vanished from production overnight. Burt wrote it clear as day in his notebook. She said no, and he made her disappear. That single sentence hit like a bombshell. It wasn't gossip. It was a direct accusation of cold retaliation. Burt believed Douglas used his fame as a weapon, and that ruthless hunger for control made Burt despise him forever. Burt Lancaster wasn't just a movie legend. He was Hollywood's moral backbone. The man whose unforgettable roles in Atlantic City and Elmer Gantry made people believe he stood for truth and integrity. But when his secret notebook was discovered, the entire industry froze in disbelief. Inside, Burt had listed names, Golden Age stars he believed had built their fame on cruelty, manipulation, and pure darkness.
6
Well, I
a.m.
do it just to fight the cigarette habit, really, more than anything.
Ah, yeah. Does that work?
Not as well as it ought to. It would work better if I stopped smoking.
He couldn't stay silent any longer, and his words would tear through the Hollywood image like a knife. But were these revelations the hidden truths behind the glamour, or the bitter reflections of a man who'd seen too much? The first name on that explosive list? Kirk Douglas, the one Burt called the predator he feared most. Hollywood worshipped Douglas for his electric charisma and fiery talent, but behind closed doors, Burt saw something else. Someone who used that same energy to control, intimidate, and crush anyone in his way. It all started back in the late 1950s, when Burt began noticing Douglas pulling strings at studios and deciding the fate of smaller actors like he was running his own empire. One moment etched itself into Burt's mind forever: the mysterious removal of rising actress Lisa Avery from a major 1959 film. Burt wrote it bluntly in his notes. She said no, and he made her disappear. Those chilling words weren't gossip. They were an accusation of cold revenge. Burt believed Douglas didn't just use power, he weaponized it, and it disgusted him. Things exploded between them during the filming of Gunfight at the OK Corral. Douglas constantly meddled in casting, whispering to producers, cutting out actors he didn't like, and even demanding reshoots just to steal the spotlight. Burt finally confronted him behind the scenes, face to face, but Douglas only smirked and said, "This town rewards men who take what they want, Burt." That line changed everything. It confirmed every suspicion Lancaster had. the ego, the arrogance, the complete lack of remorse. From that day on, their hatred became one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. Douglas refused joint interviews, Burt avoided rehearsals, and whenever they ended up at the same event, they'd sit at opposite ends of the room like rival kings who couldn't bear to acknowledge each other's throne. One studio executive even confessed, if both were invited, one would always cancel. By the late 1980s, their feud had turned to stone. No apologies, no forgiveness, not even with age. Burt skipped every ceremony honoring Douglas, and Douglas never once mentioned Burt in his memoirs. Their silence screamed louder than any fight ever could. And just when you think the drama ends there, number 2 hits even harder. Elizabeth Taylor, the unstoppable queen of chaos herself. Drama followed her like a shadow, but what truly shocked everyone was how violently she clashed with Burt Lancaster. He saw something in her that others refused to admit, and their infamous showdown happened in front of hundreds during the wild and chaotic Cleopatra shoot in 1962. When Elizabeth Taylor stormed onto the Cleopatra set one morning, chaos followed her like a storm. The moment she spotted another actress wearing a gown too similar in color to her own, she exploded with such outrage that production came to a halt for nearly half a day. Burt later summed it up in one sharp sentence. She didn't throw tantrums, she declared war. To him, Taylor didn't treat a movie set like a workplace. She ruled it like her personal battlefield, and anyone in her path became collateral damage. She'd delay shoots for hours, refuse fittings without warning, and sometimes disappear entirely, leaving directors, crew, and assistants scrambling in confusion. Burt couldn't stand it. He hated how even the most respected filmmakers walked on eggshells around her, terrified to upset Hollywood's most unpredictable queen. But what truly changed Burt's opinion of her came later, during her stormy years with Richard Burton. Taylor didn't just influence Burton's career, she took it over. Scripts were turned down before Burton even saw them, and co-stars suddenly vanished from productions just because Taylor thought they might steal too much attention from her and Burton's on-screen chemistry.
I read once that you were burned out. Was it for a fire? Your whole entire
Yes, I lost
home
my
was
home
burned
in
up?
the fire back in 1962. It was 400 homes in that particular area, of which my home was one of them.
That year, I was out there that year with Jack
November
Parr. We had
60.
nothing to do with it, either of us. But
One casting director even recalled her flipping through a call sheet and snapping, "Not him, I don't like his face." Within hours, that actor was gone, just like that. Burt found it disgusting. To him, it proved Taylor cared more about power than performance. He saw her as someone who shaped Hollywood through control, fear, and emotional spectacle, and the industry let her get away with it because of her fame. Even decades later, whenever her name came up in interviews, people said Burt's voice would harden instantly, as if all that old resentment still burned beneath the surface. There was never a reconciliation, no softening with time, no hint of forgiveness from Burt Lancaster. He held firm to one belief: Elizabeth Taylor represented a kind of beautiful destruction, and he would never let that go. But the next name in his secret notebook was just as explosive. Number 3, Marilyn Monroe, the woman Burt called the star who weaponized fragility. To the world, Monroe was a symbol of beauty and innocence, but to Burt, she was something else entirely. He saw her as someone who used her vulnerability like a tool, someone who made entire productions bend to her moods. One story that burned into Burt's memory came from a 1950s set, when Marilyn showed up 3 hours late, looked around, and said she wasn't ready to work because the energy felt wrong. That was the moment Burt snapped. He didn't see a superstar anymore, he saw chaos disguised as charm. The breaking point came during the wild production of Some Like It Hot in 1959. The set was sweltering under bright studio lights, more than 100 crew members waiting while Monroe simply vanished. No word, no warning. Hours later, she drifted back in, calm as ever, and demanded changes to a scene that hadn't even been filmed yet. Burt couldn't believe it. In his notebook, he wrote, "Delay was her weapon. Confusion was her shield." He couldn't stand how she twisted unpredictability into power. To him, no real professional would ever use chaos to control a set. What infuriated Burt the most wasn't just her lateness. It was the ripple effect she caused. Scenes rewritten overnight, lines changed because of her insecurities, entire storylines reshaped just because she thought another actress might steal a sliver of attention. Everyone around Marilyn adjusted themselves just to keep her from falling apart, and the truth was, she knew it. Behind the glamorous smiles and camera flashes, her manipulation got sharper, more calculated. Marilyn had quiet but powerful connections with studio executives who jumped the moment she made a call. If she wanted someone gone, it happened, just like that. An actor she didn't like? Suddenly labeled difficult to work with and erased from the project overnight. Burt despised this more than anything. To him, it wasn't just unprofessional, it was cruel. He couldn't stand seeing people's careers destroyed quietly with no defense and no warning. One of his colleagues even said, if she frowned, someone lost their job. That one line summed it up perfectly. While the public later painted Monroe as fragile and tragic, Burt never bought into that story. He believed Hollywood bent over backward to protect her image while everyone else paid the price. In time, in money, and in shattered reputations. But the next name in Burt's secret notebook sent a chill through even the toughest corners of Hollywood. Number 4, Spencer Tracy, the tyrant who ruled through terror. People didn't whisper Tracy's name out of respect, they did it out of fear. And that's exactly why Burt couldn't stand him. Burt hated actors who mistreated their crews, but Tracy took that behavior to another level. He made intimidation his trademark. Anyone standing within arm's reach knew that one wrong word could set him off like dynamite. The hostility between Burt and Tracy became permanent after one unforgettable day. A young makeup artist froze the moment Tracy entered the room, her hands shaking so badly she couldn't finish her job. When Burt quietly asked what was wrong, she whispered, "He threw a chair at the last girl." Tracy never apologized. Not then, not ever. Spencer. Tracy didn't even remember throwing that chair, and to Burt, that was the most unforgivable part. Violence had become so routine for Tracy that he could forget it like it never happened. During the filming of Judgment at Nuremberg, his temper grew darker, sharper, and more unpredictable. His rage could strike anyone, anytime, and it was always aimed at the weakest person in the room. He'd corner young, inexperienced actors and force them to repeat lines again and again until they finally cracked under pressure. One of those actors once confessed to Burt, "He doesn't want the scene to work. He wants me to break." That single sentence lit a fire of disgust inside Burt. What made it worse wasn't just Tracy's outbursts, it was how he manipulated people right after. The second someone challenged him, Tracy would flip the script completely. Suddenly, he'd threaten to quit, break down emotionally, or give some dramatic speech about how no one understands him. Directors would crumble, producers would beg him to stay, and everyone else on set would brace themselves for the next storm. Burt thought it was cowardly, a poisonous game of control disguised as artistic passion. In his journal, he wrote, "He punished resistance and rewarded fear." Off camera, their feud was just as fierce. Tracy refused to greet Burt at industry events, and Burt made it a point to ignore Tracy during tributes and guild meetings. Their contempt for each other wasn't whispered, it was open war. To Burt, Spencer Tracy wasn't just a talented man with flaws. He was a tyrant who poisoned every space he stepped into. Then came number 5 in Burt's secret notebook, Mickey Rooney, the Joker who thrived on cruelty. And according to Burt, the quickest way to understand why he despised Rooney was simple. Mickey laughed when other people broke. Mickey Rooney didn't hide his cruelty behind closed doors. He showed it off like a performance. He wasn't whispering or gossiping. He did it openly, proudly, and over again. Burt could handle ego. He could deal with chaos. He could even tolerate flashes of anger. But cruelty disguised as humor, that was the one thing he could never forgive. The moment that lit the fuse between them happened at MGM in the late 1960s. Burt walked into a production meeting and froze at what he saw. Right in the middle of the soundstage, Mickey Rooney was mocking a background actor's stutter, loudly, cruelly, while the crew stood silent and looked away, too uncomfortable to intervene. The young man's face turned bright red before he finally ran off the set in tears. Rooney just smirked and yelled after him, "If you can't take a joke, you shouldn't be in this business." To everyone else, it was awkward and shameful. But to Burt, it was disgusting. He saw it as the lowest kind of bullying, a man using humor as a weapon. And this wasn't some isolated outburst. Rooney had a pattern everyone in Hollywood knew about. He targeted the people who couldn't fight back, young actors, nervous assistants, stand-ins just trying to do their jobs. One script supervisor quietly told Burt, "You pray he doesn't notice you. If he does, you're done for the day." And it didn't stop there. Rooney's personal life revealed the same toxic streak. Partners treated like servants, thrown into emotional chaos, dealing with explosive outbursts that made headlines for years. Burt despised how the industry brushed it all off as just Mickey being Mickey, as if fame gave him a free pass to torment people. Their feud finally boiled over at a charity gala in the 1970s. In front of a crowd of Hollywood elites, Rooney took a jab at Burt's serious acting style, calling him the man who forgot how to smile. The room went quiet, but the damage was done. Burt's glare that night said it all. This wasn't just a rivalry anymore, it was war. When Mickey cracked that cruel joke, the room burst into uneasy laughter, but Burt didn't join in. He locked eyes with Rooney, gave him a cold, silent stare, and the whole table fell dead quiet. That glare said everything. Burt wasn't amused, and he wasn't playing games. From that day on, he refused to ever share a stage, interview, or event with Mickey Rooney again. Whenever producers suggested pairing them, his answer was always firm and final. "I don't work with men who hurt people for sport." There was never peace between them, no handshake, no mellowing with age. Their hostility stayed sharp right up until the end. Two men bound by resentment that time could never fade. So after everything Burt Lancaster revealed in that secret notebook, 5 names, 5 dark sides of Hollywood's biggest icons, which one shocked you the most? Do you think these stars were truly as twisted as Burt believed? Or were they just victims of Hollywood's cruelest rumors? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. And hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more scandalous, untold stories from Hollywood's golden age.